Okay, it's one of those videos. I am very, very angry. And maybe I'm not as angry right now as I was a couple of weeks ago when I had my Mercedes Benz serviced at a Mercedes Benz service centre. And this is my story about my third service, or should I do it like that, of my Mercedes Benz car. Let me just detail to you the first, second and third service kilometres on my vehicle, because I think this is very important to hear, and I feel a bit sheepish why I took my car down for a third service. Anyway, in the first year, and I've blanked out personal information there, this is not about naming names. Okay, my car has done 13,600 and something kilometres. Okay, so some people might say that's a lot of kilometres, well that's not very much. I think most people say, well, that's not very much. My car doesn't go very many places, okay? By the second year, I've done 19,075 kilometres. So I've done less kilometres in the second year than the first year. Then by the third service, and this is the one that this video is going to focus on, my car's done 22,684 kilometres. So between the second and third service, there's very few kilometres which have been done. And the funny way, if I knew I'd done so few kilometres, I would have just taken the car down to the service centre and said, can you reset the service interval till another year later? Then maybe I might have clocked up, let's say, 30,000 kilometres. Anyway, I took the car down there, just remembering the fact that I've done very few kilometres in this year. Took the car down there at 7:30, it was a couple of weeks back now, and you get greeted, meet and greet at the driveway there, which is always nice, and I've never had a problem here before. And the person comes out and takes photographs of your car, and if there's any pre-existing damage that gets noted, blah blah blah. And then they run through the schedule, what's going to happen to your car, and also a rough price of what you're going to pay, and you sort of agree to that as a verbal agreement there and then. And it was started to be laid out, and the person was using basically this iPad system, and it was like, I hadn't seen this before, but I found out this was a new system, okay? And when I say new, it was only weeks old. So there's all the time the person's talking to me, they seem to be fiddling around with this iPad system. The funny thing about that is that the old system, I think it was just a sheet of paper, and the new system is now technology. The funny thing about technology, it can be very distracting, okay? So the person's saying to me, well, in this service, Leo, you're going to have this done. You know, you're going to have the oil filter, so oil change, air filter, and you're going to have spark plugs. And I just straight away, I thought, spark plugs? Hang on a second, my car is a 250 GLC D. I've got a little toy of it here. That is almost identical to my car. This is actually a petrol version. I can tell that by the exhaust difference on this one, the way the exhaust splits there. My car doesn't do that. But my car looks identical to this. Mine is a diesel car. A diesel engine is a bit different to a petrol engine. I should just explain this, that the diesel compression is, the ignition of the fuel is done by the compression of the diesel air mix. Okay, there's no spark plug required. There is a glow plug to help the car start. A petrol engine, when the compression cycle happens, there's a spark plug there to ignite the fuel air mix. A lot of people in the USA may not be familiar with diesel engines because of, because of many reasons. Maybe watch the Netflix show on Dirty Money called Dieselgate. Okay, VW Dieselgate. Just go and read up about that. I don't think you'll see diesel cars ever again in the USA. Mind you, electric's in now, isn't it? And anyway, my car's a diesel, and I was a bit confounded there because I thought, this is strange. There seems to be a bit of a mix-up about my car. I was also quoted the price via this iPad system of something like 590 something. To me, I remembered it as being around $600. And also the part at the beginning there was, okay, like an agreed pickup time, and I'm pretty sure I said 2 o'clock. I wasn't really in a rush. I was going to go into town and muck around taking pictures for Google reviews. But when I heard the gentleman say to me, you know, the spark plug thing, I actually put my glasses on and I remembered his name and I know how to spell his name. Okay, I took note of that. The other thing that happened there was a bit of a disagreement about what service interval I was up to. These cars will remind you when you need to have a car service. And mine seems to clock up every year, of course, as you can see, I keep going back every year. And I was up to the A4 service. And I remembered that in the most peculiar way because one of my passions in life, and this is the Bible of the V1, V2, the German people called that missile there the A4. Okay, and I had a giggle because I was in a German car, which was telling me I needed an A4 service. And I just remembered it back to the V2. I know you won't think that's very strange. I'm right into this subject matter and I can show you quite a few examples of it. My earlier YouTube videos did touch on this as well as a V1. Beautiful thing. I wish I had one in the backyard. And of course there was that marble there. the engineering going on in that period of time was amazing, which the V2 became the Saturn V. I know some people struggle with that, but that's the way the rockets developed. I know that'll cause a kerfuffle, okay? So, but it's all beautiful in a sense. And my friend who passed away many years back now, my friend Carl from school, he went to Peenemünde. We were both heavily into this subject matter, and we knew lots about it. It was just a fascinating time of technology. Anyway, after that thing about, I'm pretty sure the service gentleman said to me, I was up for a B something service, and I said, no, it's an A4. And I've just explained to you the reason, the way I remembered that. And he double checked on the car, and he says, okay, yeah, it is an A4. So, but I think he kept looking back at this, and this plays out in this whole story because I think the information coming from this was incorrect, because we're talking about spark plugs, we're talking about a certain price for the service, we're also talking about a different service interval. So I go into town to get the day going further along. I go to Hobbyco in town. I was taking pictures for Google reviews. I got a call from the service centre, and it was a peculiar call. And oh, Leo, you know, I've just been looking at the paperwork, blah blah blah. Oh, I forgot to tell you, when you drop the car off, you're under the capped price service thing. Your service is now going to be something like $900. And I said, hang on a second, when we dropped the car off, it was a discussion of a figure much lower than that. At the time there, I couldn't remember exactly the number, and even now I'm thinking it was around about $600. And I said, why all of a sudden is it more? And he goes, oh, but it's the capped price service. So that, you know, this is the, and he tried to sell it like I was better off. I wasn't better off, I was worse off than what he discussed in the driveway when I dropped the car off. And I just thought, this is weird. And like I said, it's almost like strike one, spark plug. Strike two was the argument about service interval. Strike three was now this strange call about the capped price servicing that was now more money. It was going to charge me more. And I thought, well, okay, well, and I got quite angry, and I raised my voice on the phone. We were both sort of having to go at each other, and I apologised to the manager in Hobbyco in the train section, because I said, I'm sorry, I would have been quite verbal then. Luckily, the store had only just opened. It opened at, I think, 10 o'clock. That's around about the time, okay, all this was going on. And I felt that, you know, when you're arguing with someone on the phone, it's not nice. And I'm not often an argumentative type of person in that environment, okay? Anyway, I thought to myself, this seems like a strange day. I'm not having the usual smooth service that I've had from this service centre. And about an hour later, man, I got a call from the service centre. Oh, Leo, you need 2 new front tyres. And I just said, what? I said, man, my reaction was, what is going on there? Now remember, going back to my third service thing here, my car's done 22,000 and something kilometres, okay? The previous service was 19,000 kilometres, and I'm being told I need 2 new front tyres. I've never had a car which has gone through 2 new front tyres. That's the tyres that it came with from factory so fast. And my car's got the RFT tyre system. I'll just bring up the little toy car again. On my car, from what I've worked out, you can swap tyres back to front. I can't swap tyres going across like this, like I couldn't pull that tyre there. I hope I'm correct here to the back here. You can only go back to front. Tyre torque, it's another whole video in a sense. What I've got on my car is the Bridgestone Sport, I think it's the A tyre, okay, RFT system. I'd already had a run-in with one of the back tyres of my car where I had a double puncture. I had 2 nails very close, or 2 screws very close together. And luckily the Bob Jane Tyre Centre at Hornsby, well, they fixed it for me. Normally they won't fix punches in RFTs, that's run flat tyres. But because I hadn't driven on the tyre, I noticed my tyre was down when I came out to my car one day. And sometimes it's difficult to tell on lower profile tyres or RFTs if you've got a flat, because they're like a tyre within a tyre. And that's their technology, okay? They repaired it for me, but the Bob Jane Centre, and I did a wonderful Google review for them, they said to me, steer clear of this technology. It's got its good points, but there's a whole bunch of bad points as well. They're not suited to the Australian environment. They're suited to the Autobahn environment in Europe, okay? And like I said, maybe the tyre torque is worth another video altogether, because you can get into great big long arguments about tyres, what tyres are best on cars, what tyres give you the best mileage or kilometres and whatnot. To see a car go through a set of front tyres in such short time, well, a couple of things that indicated to me was, well, these tyres aren't good value for money. The second thing it indicated to me was, at the servicing of this car previously, obviously these tyres had not been, there's been no rotation of the tyres, because I said if they'd been rotated, I wouldn't have completely scrubbed through my 2 front tyres. Okay, so by this time I am piping red hot angry, and I mean, I'm so angry that I'm reaching for to calm me down. I am red hot. And on my trip by train back to the service centre from the city back to, well, up, where I bought it without naming names, I did some Google searching about these tyres, and sure enough, I'm finding many people are talking about tyres which are doing very low mileage or kilometres, and it's almost like the bragging rights. So I've scuffed off my tyres in 12,000 miles of driving. A lot of American forums, so they're talking in miles, where kilometres, where we are. But I had to do a quick thing on my calculator, or with Google search, to try and work out what miles that was versus kilometres. And in the end, it's not very many. And I'm thinking, well, what is going on here? They're proud that they're blowing away, $500, or a pair of tyres is $1,000. And yet these are being scrubbed out really fast. And I was trying to get some ammunition and get some knowledge before I came back to the service centre. I wanted to see the person who I purchased the car from. He's one of the few salespeople that still works there. I think he's been there 5 years. I'd love to name his name. Wonderful young guy. He knows the brand really well. And I think in this story here, if you've got a piece of technology on a car, and in a funny way, the tyres are connected to the car, but they're not the brand, in the sense I have got Bridgestone tyres, okay? And one thing, when I started to go off on the phone about the tyres, the service guy said to me, don't blame the brand for the fact your tyres have been scrubbed out in no time. I'm a very sedate driver, and I actually end up saying to Mercedes Benz, you can pull all the data from my car and you can see just how granny a driver I am, okay? Because if they were going to make an accusation that I'm a rip-tear bust driver, man, they would not go very far with that once they looked at the data on my car. I'm sure Mercedes Benz International could pull that data off like that. They would probably pull it off while the car's sitting in the driveway. So, got back to the service centre. I got to talking to the person who sold me the car. A great person, because he explained to me, he understood the run flat tyre system and the disadvantages to it. What should have been explained to me when I was told I needed two new front tyres out of the blue and make a rush decision on it was, these tyres have got an inherent fault that their lifespan, if they're not rotated on the car, is very short, as I've found out, okay? Let's say if they'd hit up 40,000 or 50,000 kilometres, I maybe wouldn't have questioned it, okay? It's, okay, yeah, sure, the car adheres to the road amazingly well. There's many amazing features about this car. I should hold up the little toy car. That is amazing. As a safe car to drive, and thinking, like, if I have a bad accident and I'm going to get out of this bad accident in a good way, this is the car I want to be driving, okay? Its headlight technology is amazing. Look, I could talk about many amazing things about this car, and I often said I always try to crash this car, but it keeps putting the brakes on for me. It's got that sort of technology wrapped all the way around it, okay? Fantastic technology, and this technology creeps into, well, lesser brands in years to come, but generally Mercedes-Benz and other higher-end brands tend to forge this technology first. So I get back to the service centre. Like I said, the person who sold me the car had calmed me down a bit. I said, I'd like to speak to the service manager. I do not want to speak to the person who I've had this run-in on the phone. The person who I dropped the car off to, I don't want to see him. Okay, and I also told him during the day when I had the run-in with the run flats, I told him, I don't want to pick up this car. In fact, and see the person who sold me the car, and that's why I went to see the person. I said, go and tell him I want the best buyback price in this car. I don't want to drive home in this car. I'm over it. I want this vehicle out of my life. Okay, and I just actually went to see the person who sold me the car. I said, did the person that I dropped the car off to come up and tell you I wanted to sell the car? And he said, no. I said, well, I was curious. Well, there's maybe strike 4 or 5, isn't it? The day of having a kerfuffle with someone. And I thought, well, maybe he thought I was just going to calm down. But man, I wasn't calming down. I wanted to see the service manager. Service manager was good. And in a funny way, he was a guy like me. He'd been a person who'd been on the tools for many years, and I think he knew what he was talking about. And he did explain to me that they had this new system, which involved iPads and stuff. It's only been in there a couple of weeks. And I told him the problem that I had. I told him this sort of all-day joke of the fact that my diesel car needed spark plugs, and this still plays out. So, and I said, what's going on there? And I told him about some of the other curious things that were going on. I said it feels like the person who took the car in had no idea what my car was there for, because I got totally a different price evolved during the day. I was arguing about the service interval when the car was dropped off. Nothing seemed to align. And the way the service manager put it down to the problem was, he said, on this system, it's pretty easy to fat finger and press maybe the wrong car, and maybe another car like mine has come up, and these other, would say figures have been applied to my vehicle in a funny way that does sort of make sense. But whether or not that actually happened, I don't know. Mercedes Benz, whatever, Australia can come and do a inquisition on this one, which I'm sure they will. Okay. And I think the funniest thing and the saddest part, when I was speaking to the manager there, and we had a long discussion, and he did apologise, and I mean, apologies are very important in all this. He explained the run flat tyre system in a peculiar way, because he says, oh, look, Leo, there are some people who come in here and within 12,000 kilometres or 15,000 kilometres, they are going through sets of tyres. And I thought, that doesn't sound good to me. I've never heard of this before. And I spoke to a few other people who have cars like this. Mind you, not identical vehicle to this, but other models. And they haven't heard anything like this. Mind you, if I go online, I can find similar stories like this, mainly talking about people doing mileage in the USA. Okay, so there are some stories there which talk about these tyres lasting a very short amount of time, and which does correlate to what I was told. But then again, I'm sort of thinking, I said to the service manager, a very simple question. I said, at service, do you rotate the tyres? And of course, once again, this gets into a much more complex discussion about, on these cars, where can you put that tyre? Can you go, I think on my car, you can only go front to back. I don't think you can go crisscrossing across the car or like that. I'm still to get my head around that. Okay, my car doesn't have a spare tyre, so there's no fifth tyre to rotate as well. What I've learned is the RFT system is, look, there's an aspect to it which is amazing, but I think there's more negatives to the amazing. Okay, and like I keep saying, it really deserves a separate video talking about the tyres of my car. And I think when I discussed all the things that had gone on in the day, and I was just wanting to let off steam, I just wanted someone to hear my story, to see how I felt as a customer, because this is why I'm making this video. Okay, I hope you think I'm sane. Okay, even on the final invoice, and I think this to me epitomizes the day, is it talks about replaced spark plugs on the final invoice. And I thought to myself, and the service manager, even he noticed, he just laughed. He says, I can't believe this. It still talks about a diesel car getting a replacement of spark plugs. Mind you, it doesn't say, when I look at more pages here, it doesn't say that I've been charged for that. The other curious part about this here is, and I started, because of all the kerfuffle during the day, I started to look very carefully what's said on here. And really, look, my car's relatively, well, it's still a new car in a sense. It's done very low kilometres. There's not many things that go wrong with cars in that space of time, okay? It talked about filled up with AdBlue. Now, on a diesel vehicle, AdBlue is there. It's another liquid that's put in near where you put diesel into the car. It's there to help make it a cleaner burn. I believe it's injected into the exhaust system. And I'm not sure, I don't think, well, I know all diesel cars don't have this system, but it was there to try and appease emission controls in certain countries. I'm not exactly sure how much AdBlue my car goes through, let's say in a 10,000 kilometre thing, but what I did notice is when I looked at my cap on my car next to the diesel, where you put the diesel in, to me the AdBlue cap looks like it has not been touched since maybe the year previous, where I have had AdBlue put in on that second service and the first service, where it talks about, it doesn't tell you how much they put in, they just either say quantity 1 or quantity 2, and there's a fee there. Of course, quantity 2 is more expensive, as always. But when I looked at the photo there, and of course I'm showing you the photo of that, to me, that's got all the dust and accumulation of being 1 year. My car doesn't do many kilometres. It's just got the accumulation there. You don't see the accumulation on the diesel cap because I'm putting diesel fuel into my car. So that was another little thing. Mind you, I noticed that I wasn't charged for AdBlue on this third service. So I just think what I'm noticing is on this document here, there's a whole bunch of strange things. It's talking about a 75,000 kilometre service. My car's done nothing like 75,000 kilometres. Spark plugs, filled AdBlue. I can't see evidence of that. Mind you, I've done very few kilometres since the previous service. In reality, what my car needed was basically an adjustment of the interval, call-in thing on the car, which annoys you to death in the end. Service required. Can you reset that and I'll come back in a year? And maybe we can, adjust another cap price service, just put it back a year, because I've barely driven the car. I didn't realise how little I'd driven the car until I started looking at these numbers here. And I feel really stupid taking a car down which has done a couple of thousand kilometres and it's had all this work done to it when it doesn't need it. Although some people may say you need to change the oil out every year. In Australia, we've got this saying about oil changes in cars. You do it every Prime Minister change because it seems to happen every year. In Australia, we've burned through 6 Prime Ministers in 9 years, something ridiculous. Okay, so that's the joke here. Whether or not my car needed a service at all is peculiar, but the tyre thing is the one that sort of burns on me, because if I was going in at the 19,000 kilometre, well, holding up the wrong one there, the 19,000 kilometre service there, which is the second one, and they're not noticing the tyres must have been very close to being burnt out by that point. There's like little indicators on the tyres. Nothing was said at that, but a few thousand kilometres later, all of a sudden the tyres need changing, and I'm thinking, very curious what's going on there with the tyres, and I'm still yet to fully understand what's going on there. Just had to change a battery, and I will finish off here. I've got a couple of final things to say about this service that I had down at Mercedes Benz blah blah. There's surveys that happen when you buy a vehicle like this. Mercedes Benz will ask you a billion questions about the brand. They want to know everything you think about what you've purchased. They listen to your feedback. I'm sure they listen very carefully. They ask you about other brands, whether you've gone and perused other brands and things, whether you're interested in electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, whatnot. I think I kept saying to them I was interested in a Tesla. That might spook them a bit, hey? Okay, but in reality I'm not really interested in a Tesla. I think I'm interested in maybe something more conventional, but maybe hybrid, not electric, if that makes any sense. But the surveys are interesting because I've had the one which deals with the dealership. I've also had the second tier, which talks about, it's Mercedes Benz Australia, and they ask some very interesting questions about my interaction with the service team, and I can see by the questions they can pin down to the problems. And they even asked the question about the that iPad system. So they know that's there. So I told them what I felt was going on, and also that was being said by the service manager there. They need to get I think there's some IT problems going on there, and they need to get the people working there to be very comfortable with that system, and no more, if it is a fat finger type mistake, no more of that. And really, a staff person needs to know the vehicle and the customer's requirement for that day, because I think that was severely missed on the day I was there. It was quite astonishing, the fumbling and bumbling sort of service that I had. And also, if you quote a price, stick to it. Don't all of a sudden bump it up and then try to cover and say, oh, it's a cap price service, and then say it's a cheaper thing. Also, the service centre, man, you've got to rotate the tyres. When I found out they didn't, I actually had an admission, they do not rotate tyres at service. Once again, it had me looking at the service book. That would have saved me having to have this, well, I need new tyres at the moment. And even after I had the car serviced, I keep getting email reminders that the car needs service or the car is overdue for service. So to me, this is telling me there's some major IT issues going on with the systems down at the Mercedes Benz Service Centre. And a very, very final thing, I had done a Google review about this business because I was trying to understand Google reviews. I went and did businesses that I dealt with. I don't do a Google review of people I don't know, okay? If it's a good business, I give them a good review. If it's a business that's struggling, I try to give them a wake-up call. And earlier in the day, when I was having trouble with the service person and all of the kerfuffle had built up between the spark plugs, the service interval, the change of fee, what else happened that day? The two front tyres. I exploded and I threatened them back, and I did a nasty thing, a very narky thing actually. I said, look, I told this person who I was dealing with during the day, I said, I'll let you in a little secret. I've done this Google review of your business and I'm fairly high ranking in that silly system. I'd hate to have to come in and adjust that review to reflect what's happened to me today. And the funny way, the person who I was dealing with that, he really reacted to that. And that really did spike him up. I thought, that's interesting. And I thought, wow, it was a bit like I picked the right nerve when I said that one. Okay, so I thought, that's very interesting. Because I've calmed down a bit now, and because I made this video here, because you know my story as well, what I will do is I'm going to adjust my review so it talks only about it's related to the sales side, okay, because I can't have that opinion going to the service side. And it's the funny thing here is I did look at those reviews on the train ride back from town going to the service centre. I did notice a few other people were doing that divide as well. So obviously there's a bit of a thing going on. I mean, it's one of these things, it's easy to make someone happy when you're selling them something really nice, but it's really difficult to make them happy when you're charging them money on something that's really nice and it becomes being a lot of money. And when I start to add up the cost of this vehicle, the running costs, and man, the insurance is another story as well. It actually ends up, for the few kilometers that I've done on this vehicle, the running cost of this vehicle for me has been very, very high. And maybe I need to run around or drive it more, and then the equation would change. But just even on insurance, like the first year of insurance was, I think, $1,200. The second year was $1,500. The third year was $2,000, like the one I'm just meant to pay now. I didn't pay that $2,000. I said, how come can a car which is depreciated by 3 years jump from $1,200 to $2,000 and the car's worth less? And it was done through Mercedes Benz insurance. I might mention there was an umbrella company there. Okay, so I did it when I purchased the car. The initial price was very good, but the price I'm getting hit with now is not good at all. And then I bumped into a mortgage broker who was affected by the hailstorm. He's also got this brand as well, many cars like this. And being a mortgage broker, he actually gave me a good tip about a thing called insurance creep. Okay, maybe you know about that. Very interesting, where they keep creeping the price up, thinking that you're not going to notice. Well, the funny thing is, I only noticed this time because of this service made me look very carefully at all the facts and figures related to keeping this car. Please don't get me wrong here. It's an incredible car. It's a beautiful car to drive. I only found out about the car from looking at a YouTube review, because the car was available in the UK first. It was a very late comer to Australia. Mercedes Benz were very late in getting an SUV type car into Australia. And I was looking at YouTube videos, and the person who sold me the car will know that story, because I said, well, they said, how do you know about the vehicle, the car? I said, well, I was watching YouTube videos, which are very powerful when it comes to talking about brands and things. And of course, always very positive things. It's funny, you'll notice that people who've got these types of cars, there's often service stories related to them in costs and things and peculiar things that go on. Not just Mercedes-Benz, but all of these premium brands. Yeah, so very interesting sort of, it's funny. It's just one service can make you rethink the brand, and that's what I'd probably like to finish with here. And I'm sure Mercedes-Benz will listen very carefully to every word I had to say in this video. I better leave it here. And luckily I didn't have to reach for this too much in this video.